Hi everyone, welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. Loving the classic Avengers shout out on the t-shirt of the person I'm talking to at the moment, and that is comics creator Jerry Bennett. Jerry, thank you for coming for a second chat.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me again, Jason.
Anytime, anytime, absolutely. The first time we talked, we were really focusing, it seems like on Glamorella's daughter. That was kind of the area that we were looking at, and a slightly different project this time around, just a little different. So I guess my first question is Keiju or Kaiju? What do you say?
I usually say kaiju, but
Okay,
I'm
Kaiju.
probably wrong. I don't know.
At this point, I've used it both ways so much, I'm not actually sure what I do say, but I know that you have Oklahoma Kaiju, uh, that's currently being funded. Is this volume two? Is that right?
So yeah, it is actually a part two. It is a continuation from a short story that I did years ago. Uh, one of my comic creator friends, Jeff Provine, he had launched a really big endeavor, and it was a fantastic magazine called Okie Comics,
Hmm
and
hmm
its purpose was to highlight Oklahoma centric stories done specifically by Oklahoma creators. And so
Nice.
um, I got to do several stories for Jeff. Jeff wrote a lot of the stories. There were other contributing writers, but it seems like most of the stories that I did for him are the ones that he wrote. And so, and one of them was called Oklahoma Kaiju. It was an 6 or 8 page story about a a giant monster-sized possum uh,
Mhm.
that popped out of the ground and started just rampaging through specifically 1960s Oklahoma City.
Nice,
And
nice, yeah.
the cool thing is you can actually read this story for free at okiecomics.com. So he made everything available to read there for free. And so this original story can be read there. And a fun little tidbit, especially for Oklahoma natives who specifically knew the time frame. It was an interesting little like anecdote uh, to give a false excuse of what happened to many of these beautiful buildings. So in the 60s in Oklahoma City, they went through an urban renewal program, and
hmm
they were wanting to like make a contemporary looking downtown skyline, and so they ended up tearing down a lot of buildings, and they were like the architecture was like no other. I mean, it was just beautiful buildings that they tore down. And so this particular that first comic of Oklahoma Kaiju was kind of a fun little poke. Like all the buildings that were destroyed in that urban renewal just happened to be the same buildings that the possum, destroyed rampaging through downtown Oklahoma City. And
hmm
so it was just a little fun, uh, kind of a fun history lesson of a sorts. And But this one is like a full 27-page one shot issue that kind of builds on it. In fact, Jeff kind of like he kind of has this whole universe now that he's built. He's got a really great world building aesthetic now built around it. So he's continuing from the events that happened in the 60s with the possum, and uh supposed that um a monster task force was issued in response to that. And so we have all these Oklahoma statues that are like famous to the area. Like so, and on the cover of our Kickstarter, you
hmm
have this Route 66. It's called the Golden Driller, and it's a huge statue in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we have it kind of becoming a mecha warrior that's part of this monster task force that helps protect Oklahoma from other Oklahoma centric kaiju that arise to face.
Love it. And I've seen that cover. I've seen it on your social media outlets. Love that cover. And I have to go back to the original story. Possums are just cool animals to me. I just wanted to throw that in there, you know?
You know,
Like,
what's great about that particular story is that you learn a lot about that. You learn a lot about possums and realize, it wasn't trying to like destroy Oklahoma City. It was just trying to hide. It was just trying to, be on its own. I mean, we have possums. I have possums in my backyard, and I love. I To me, they're quite valuable, honestly, because they take care of a lot of like ticks and a lot
hmm
of they do a lot of good environmentally, honestly. And so I never like I just leave them alone unless they're trying to eat my outdoor cat's food. And then I just have to shoo them away. But yeah, I've never I dig possums, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what was your original introduction to kaiju? Because I know for me, I remember seeing, of course, Godzilla, Man in the Suit sort of thing, and I remember finding these VHS tapes at like Rose's or Kmart or Rite Aid or whatever it was, those little spinners of not spinner racks, but spinners of like VHS tapes. And I
Right.
remember every now and then I would see a new, just recently distributed or redistributed copy of Godzilla versus something. Was your introduction pretty similar?
Similar in that it was Godzilla for sure. But my introduction was in the drive-in theater. Um,
Nice.
we had a local drive-in theater back in the day when I grew up in Del City that showed Godzilla movies all the time, all the classic Godzilla movies, Godzilla versus Ghidorah, Godzilla versus Mothra, and so my parents really like encouraged that by taking me to every one of them that came into town. So it was amazing. And of course, whenever they would show on TV, I every chance I got, I was sitting in front of it watching all them. And yeah, it's beautiful. I was always watching. I was always drawing them too. I really was trying to learn how to draw Godzilla. Godzilla was such a fun creature to draw, and
Mm,
and, I, and I'm loving all the iterations of Godzilla now. There's so many different styles to him now. It's just it's insane. I'm loving it.
yeah, yeah. As you're putting together this book, any particular inspirations, any sort of go-tos for capturing that visual world that you're after?
You know, I it's interesting. I'm finding myself really really drug in to a lot of different styles in today's comics now. And I'm
Mhm.
like one of my favorite comic creators, Daniel Warren Johnson.
Yeah, yeah.
I just love his organic style, and he's drawn a lot of his stories have involved giant creatures, and I just love the aesthetic that he brings into them. And he's currently doing the Transformers. In fact, I think he won two Eisners, I think, for his work in Transformers this year.
Mm,
And I love the organic feel that he gave the robots, and so I've been really wanting to play with more of that. It doesn't really show very much because I have a hard time getting out of a clean line
mm,
style, if that makes sense. I
mm,
One of my favorite artists has still stuck in very deeply. Stuart Amonin. He was a huge Marvel artist and DC artist, and he has a very clean, polished line, and he does some just gorgeous work with it. And so I I've I've stuck very close to that. I'm trying to actually get away from it. But I'm doing a lot of sketching, a lot of playing around, but I am adopting a lot of the dynamic vibes as far as like perspective, like real deep dynamic foreground versus background camera perspectives and camera angles, and trying to play a lot with that, and really enjoying the process. And I've been kind of experimenting a lot with this anyway, because like I'm trying to like scale back a lot of the line work to let some color also. I don't I don't I don't like push my color near enough, and with this world that Jeff created, to me it's a very like vibrant, colorful world. And so I'm kind of like pushing a lot of my primary colors into play here. Primary and secondary colors. I don't. I'm always such a muted guy when it comes to color, and
mm.
so I'm trying to like step out of my comfort zone and really push for some brighter. more vivid colors in this story.
Yeah, but I love the mashup, sort of bringing the kaiju idea with something, local to me and something I'm very familiar with. Um, was there a particular moment of inspiration where you were like, this is what I'm gonna do?
I don't know. I feel like it's a number of things. Because like I've always tried to do I was like just not even a decade ago, I was hardcore into like mashups. I love
Hmm.
I loved mixing up like Star Wars with other IP and just playing around with all kinds of stuff. In fact, um one of my artist residencies back in 2018, I had an artist residency with a local art district here, the Paseo Arts District. They collaborated with the Skirvin Hilton Hotel, which is an historic hotel in downtown, one of the few hotels that was around during the possum attack that actually is still up to this day. It's gorgeous architecture, and they had a studio space that I got to inhabit and show gallery work, have some gallery shows, and it was studio space where I could show anyone who came in, just tips on creating comics. And so I got to do this whole comic creating residency. And part of my gallery work was doing a lot of specifically Oklahoma scenes with um, with a comic flair. And so
Yeah.
I did several kaiju themed Oklahoma City downtown scenes. I have one where one of our larger buildings um, was kind of a focal point between a kaiju centipede versus a mecha robot, a huge, just one big battle there. And I had a War of the Worlds scene, those giant tripod walkers, in War.
Yes. Uh-huh.
I had one crawling right over the hotel, and so I got to have a lot of fun mixing my love of monsters with the Oklahoma City area. I've done lots of them, and so it was always a love of Oklahoma, plus my love growing up with Godzilla and Star Wars, science fiction. My love of both of those allowed me a fun opportunity to really play with the both. I still have a bunch of more ideas that I want to do. Well, in fact, even with Glamorella's daughter,
Hmm.
we specifically made those characters live in Oklahoma as well because it was just another opportunity to shine a light on Oklahoma and the fact that Oklahoma has not a great rap in a lot of areas. We want to shine a light on the really cool things about
Yeah.
Oklahoma, not just fictional areas, but we're just trying to show that Oklahoma has a lot of cool culture that's coming up. In fact, I just got to participate in a number of things. I'm actually um, a founding board member for a new comics nonprofit here called the Oklahoma Comic Arts Foundation, and
Cool.
we're elevating the comic art scene here, and I'm kind of like overseeing a lot of the education aspects of it, as far as like getting to teach the process and getting to help organize workshops where we have a lot of amazing comic creators here. We have like honestly, we have more comic shops than like I think we have more comic shops than California does. I'm kind of
Oh,
floored.
wow.
Yeah, no. I know locally for me, I live within within 20 minutes or less of 5 comic shops, and it boggles my mind that that we would have such a strong presence in comics, and now that comics have such a presence in libraries, I get to do a lot of stuff with libraries, getting to present about how powerful comics are in the world today. And that's part of the mission with the nonprofit, because we want to just show that comics can show all kinds of perspectives. Uh,
Hmm.
it's afforded me with that to highlight just all the amazing comic creators we have locally, and so I'm just enjoying every aspect of comics that we have here.
Love that, love that. Well, I was going to ask if there's anything else that readers should know about the book before we talk about where to find it. I do think the title says a lot. I think in 2 words, it works as its own sort of tagline for the story.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to think that the title really does just say it all, and what's fun is that um if assuming that this Kickstarter succeeds, and we can continue on, he's got Jeff has so many more ideas, and he's allowed me to like throw in, specific places that I want to highlight, in Oklahoma. Like for this
Mhm.
story, um, I did get to highlight my alma mater, USAO, which is just outside of Oklahoma City in Chickasha, Oklahoma, and so that'll be like a battleground for the golden driller facing off the main kaiju monster, and it's a rattlesnake, which is another uh common creature in Oklahoma. But we're doing a little fun extra thing by well, and I don't even want to give it away, but I'll just say that we have a fun aspect to this rattlesnake that really just explodes into a fun adventure, I think.
Nice, nice. Love it. Well, if I'm a listener out there and I want to support the project, if I want to see more about your work, any particular places that I can go to find out about that, as well as the work you do in the arts in Oklahoma as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is currently being uh we launched it on Kickstarter just a few days ago, actually. And so we have 24 days left as of this recording. And I think we're about 33% there. So we're well on our way. We're inching along, and we have several pages to preview on our Kickstarter page. And so if you look up Oklahoma Kaiju 2, you
Hmm.
can find it there, or you can find my socials. I'm most often on Instagram and Blue Sky, both as artist Jerry Bennett. And if you're local, all my stuff is usually around the Paseo Arts District for the most part. Um, in fact, if you're local, a lot of my comics are now available digitally through the library. We've been partnering with a lot with our local metropolitan library system, and um, all 6 current issues of Glamorella's Daughter are actually available to check out uh, digitally and through the Libby app through our local library. And so it's been a real joy to be able to collaborate and just find all the avenues that we can put our comics in. And so you can find, in fact, even not locally, so many libraries across the nation and around the world even are carrying Glamorella's Daughter right now. And
Hmm.
so,
Hmm.
so, and I know that if anyone's wanting to read that comic, and not living locally, they can actually go to globalcomics.com, and that's comics with an X. And so they can go to globalcomics with an X.com and read Glamorella's Daughter there as well.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Jerry, I'm always glad to talk with you. Glad to talk about projects as they come to be. I appreciate your creativity. And when I saw Oklahoma Kaiju, I just thought this is definitely conversation worthy. So always glad to have you back.
Thank you so much, Jason. I always love discussing comics with you.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much.
Thank you.